Hey, we back. I'm here on, well, currently MFC, and we're doing a bit of a different video today because I figured I would do a video on where to buy anime figures. This is something that people have done before, you can find it on YouTube, but I figured I would also do it because why not? I've been collecting figures for a little bit now, and while I'm certainly no expert, I do think I know where to get them. At least I know a thing or two about it, and I figured I would try and make a video on this. I've been wanting to do more figure videos recently, but it's been so long since I've actually got any anime figures myself. Hopefully there will be some coming soon, to be fair. Maybe in the next couple of weeks you might see a figure video, maybe an unboxing. That would be cool. But at any rate, for now, I figured we would do a video on where to buy them. So this intended for people that have not bought any figures before, really, or perhaps did buy one or two, but they were from Amazon, and maybe you probably didn't get the best deal or something like that. And I'm just going to go through the whole process. Where do you find them? Where do you buy them? What the process is? Yeah, basically. So yeah, let's just start from the top. Now, if you haven't done much research on buying figures, there are a lot of sites that you're going to need to know about. We'll be talking about quite a few of them in this video, but I know that before I started buying figures, the only site I knew to buy stuff on online was like Amazon and eBay, and let me tell you, you don't want to be buying figures on Amazon and eBay. Both of them are going to be overpriced, and on eBay, some of them might also be fake, probably quite a lot of them. I would advise against buying anything figure related on either Amazon or eBay. There will almost always be a better option somewhere else, on one of the sites that we'll talk about in the video, or in just any other site really, because the figures are Japanese and Amazon and eBay are not based in Japan. Then they are not going to be the prime sites to buy these things on, and the Japanese ones and the figure-based ones obviously are. Now, there are a couple of exceptions to this. If you do know what you're doing and you know where you're looking, maybe not on Amazon, but on eBay, there are some people that do sell figures legitimately, and because they are on a site that requires a lot of trust, because they might be fake figures or something like that, then what you'll find is actually they're pretty cheap prices. And if you know what you're looking for, you can find figure sellers on places like eBay, and they might give you some cheap prices. I do know one guy who sells figures in the UK, on eBay pretty consistently, and they really good prices. I've got a couple of figures probably for under $10 including shipping, which is really quite impressive, to be honest. But there's probably a lot more fakes out there than there are people like that. So if you are indeed new to buying figures, I would just avoid things like that entirely. It's probably not worth the risk. If you don't already know, MFC is the first website that you're going to want to check out. MFC is, if you're into anime, you probably know My Anime List or AniList or any website like that will track all of the animes that exist and what people thought of them, and comments on them, and stats about them, and all the rest of it. MFC is like that, but for figures. It has all the figures that exist, will exist. Like it's got a lot of figures that are not released yet. You can see stats about them and comments about them and all the rest of it. Add them to your list of figures that you have. It's like I say, it's like Mal. So I've got the search up here, the advanced search. I'm gonna search for something. I'm gonna filter for figures, and then let's search a character in, shall we? Let's search for Rem. Naturally, Rem's a good character to search for. We'll specify we want it in a ReZero Rem, because of course there are other Rems. Could specify company or something like that, but let's just go for this. We want a ReZero Rem. Now, as you can see, a bunch of Rems pop up. Some of them will be drafts, as you can see, ones that have not got, well, I've not got images, but haven't had anything released about them yet. As you can see, the little date on there, it says it's going to be released March next year, so that's a few months. And then we've got a few others. Maybe they've got a picture up, but it's not been painted, or they've got it all up, but it's still not released yet. See this one in February 2023 next year. So yeah, but then all the other ones, these are all figures that have released. So we've got this one was just quite recently, a couple of months ago. There we go, one from last year, sure. And the first thing you're going to want to do when you are looking to buy a figure is go on a list like this and pick which one you want. Now with Rem, this might take a while because, as you can see, there's so many of them. Pages and pages, 417 exactly. But you are going to want to plan what you're going to buy. You don't just want to buy the first thing you see, because if you do, you're firstly going to probably be spending more money than you want to spend on it. And secondly, you might be missing out on a figure that you think is better. Of course, it's all opinionated on which figure people like, but I think it's always going to be best to pick which figure you want to buy before buying it. So there you go. And then what we can do, we can click on one of them. I'll click on this Sleepy Rem here that I actually have, and we get all the stats on it. So this says it's a trading figure. It says it's a prize, which means it's going to be cheap, which is wonderful, as you can see. Nice cheap one. This supposedly allows you to convert it into USD, but I never find it works. Should we try it? Yo-ho, it actually worked for once. It's about $5. And then if we scroll down, we see a bunch of comments on it. Some people selling the figure, saying it's available on Mandarake. That's a site that we have open here. We'll talk about that later. There's someone doing an unboxing of it. Someone looking to buy it. There are actually many comments on this one. If you look at the more expensive figures, you'll probably find a lot of comments on the quality of it and stuff like that. Maybe people looking forward to buying it, but since this is a cheap one, people don't really care. I think it's very cute, but anyway, yeah, let's suppose you decide that you want to buy this figure. Now, where are you going to go to look for it? Well, the first thing you're going to have to know is what sites exist, which ones are available, and there's a lot of different sites. I have a few examples up here, but for the most part, there are a lot of different sites. Proxies as well are a thing that exists that I won't be talking about, but yes, you can get stuff on proxies, you can get stuff on sites, you can get stuff all over the place. The main three that I would advise you have a look at is Solaris here. Solaris just has a huge variety of stuff. If there's anything coming out, they're probably selling it. This is not really true, but they do sell a lot of stuff. They also have a lot of second-hand stuff that they sell, and you obviously can get the second-hand stuff for cheaper. So let's suppose we search in Rem on the Solaris shop. We're going to see a lot of stuff here. We'll filter it by figures. 377. To be fair, they're not all from ReZero. Let's try putting ReZero in as well, shall we? Okay, here we go. We still have 240 figures, and as you can see, some of them you can get pre-owned for a bit cheaper, which is pretty nice, sometimes significantly cheaper. Prices have put themselves in euros for some reason. Never trust an online store to get your currency correct. They will always put it in the wrong one. Might be dollars, might be euros, might be yen. For me, it's never pounds, because that's the one I want, and of course it's never going to be the one you want anyway. Yeah. And you can try and find the one that you want to sell. Sorry, that you want to buy on Solaris. It has a huge selection. Another good one is AmiAmi. AmiAmi is just probably one of the best known sites for buying figures. It doesn't have quite as large a section as Solaris, I would say, because it doesn't sell second-hand stuff. I mean, it does, but it doesn't sell as much. AmiAmi, for the most part, sells stuff that is currently releasing. So if we search Rem, it will have a huge selection of stuff. All of these figures... there we go. All of these figures are listed on the site, but what you'll notice, a lot of them say order closed, and this means that you can't buy them anymore. If I go onto one of these, for example, it's going to say that I can't get it on the site anymore, and having it exist and be secondhand doesn't necessarily help. Like I say, though, it does have second-hand ones. I shouldn't give the impression that they don't have any second-hand ones. They totally do, but finding them is a little harder. And if you're looking on MFC to find a figure that you want to buy, the chances that AmiAmi has it, if it's not new, it's kind of low. But it does have a lot of new stuff, and if you're looking to get a pre-order or something, would definitely recommend AmiAmi to have a look at this. And it does have some that have released as well, so you can see some of them are listed as pre-order and some of them are not. So it does have some that are not pre-orders as well. If we go onto this though, I guarantee it released pretty recently. I wonder if it's going to say on here. There you go, September 2022. So that was 2 months ago. 3 months ago. I can do maths. So it's pretty recent. Once you get older figures, probably not going to show up on AmiAmi. And then the next one, Mandarake. This one typically will sell older stuff. I mean, it sells, again, a lot of stuff, just in general. But if you're looking for something older, then this is probably the place to go. Also, more niche stuff is on here. So, for example, with this Rem, you can see, since it's a trading figure, it's a prize. It's not going to be available on a lot of shops, to be fair. However, it was apparently available on Mandarake. Should we have a look and see if it still is? It's not. It's currently out of stock, but it may at some point be in stock again. And when it comes to figures like this that are a bit more niche or maybe a bit older, Mandarake is an excellent place to look. You kind of have to just get to know the stores a little bit. I would very highly recommend having a browse of these three especially, just so you get the gist of what kind of things they're going to be selling. For the most part, like I say, Solaris is going to be selling everything. AmiAmi is selling new stuff. Mandarake may be selling older stuff or niche stuff. But yes, they all have a lot of stuff. And if you are buying something, I would also recommend checking it out on every site. Of course, it might be that it's something new and Mandarake is definitely not going to have it. But on the other hand, there's no harm checking, and if it does have it, you might get a cheaper price. So yeah, you always want to check out all of those stores. And then we have here Nanoma and Nin Game. These are kind of more generic stores. These will have some figures and not other figures. So again, we can search Rem into one of these. Is it going to come up with ReZero stuff? It is not. Fantastic. Let's add ReZero on the end. There we go. All of the Rem figures have come up. We've got that new one that we were just looking at, and plenty of other ones also. But what's notable is that the number of results is much smaller. It may look like a lot because it's 4 pages, and that is a lot. But if you look, we've got 94 here, whereas when we looked on here, we had more than double that. So the store just has less stuff on it. The same will be true for Nin Game and most of the other generic stores. There is a long list of kind of stores that are very similar to this, they'll have some pre-orders, they might have some currently releasing ones, they might have some pre-owned ones that you can buy a bit cheaper, but at the end of the day, they will not have a very complete collection. But the main point about them is that they might be cheaper prices. If they have the figure, it may be cheaper than one of these other ones, and I would recommend having a look through sites like this to find out if they do have a cheaper price, because while they have a smaller collection, they do often have the cheaper prices. But if you do get into figure collecting, you will probably just come across a lot of sites like this. Nanoma and Nin Game are the two that I personally like looking at a lot, but there will be plenty of other ones that you might, I don't know, like The Right Stuff or something like that, which is just another site to add to that list. So yeah, there you go. There's my 5 example sites. We can't go on example sites forever. But yes, the point is you must check all of them. All of the ones that you know about, all of the ones that you think are relevant at least. If they have the figure, what's the price? And then you get it cheapest price, of course. Now, shipping is another thing that you have to consider. Some sites are going to have some weird finicky shipping. Sites like Nanoma and Nin Game will have pretty standard shipping. The same kind of shipping that you would expect on something like Amazon. You just pay the amount and then that's that. Mandarake is kind of interesting because with Mandarake, all of the Mandarake shops are in-person shops, and I'm pretty sure they're all in Japan. But they're all in-person shops, so when you buy a figure from Mandarake, you are buying it from a particular shop, and so it will get delivered from that particular shop. What this means is if you buy multiple figures at once in Mandarake, they might come from different shops, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, that's a thing. And AmiAmi also has an interesting shipping thing. When you place the order for the figure, you can select which type of shipping you want, and then they will send you an email a day or two later that tells you how much shipping cost that will actually be. They don't work it out on the site, they check later, which maybe you may think, oh, well, that's kind of annoying, I want to know the cost right away, but what they're trying to do there is be optimal about it, especially if you're buying more than one figure at a time. They are trying to make sure that you get the cheapest shipping possible, and so they will check your exact order and how much they can get the shipping for in that case. So in theory, the shipping is cheaper, although to be perfectly honest, it's kind of not. Ami Ami is often a little expensive, but it has all the new stuff, so hey, whatever. Anyway, at the end of the day, the cost of the figure, which is the next thing we will talk about, is entirely going to depend on what type of figure it is, of course. So you get small ones like this, prize figures especially. Prize figures are the cheap ones. If you are starting out as a anime figure collector, maybe getting your first anime figure or two, or maybe you only want to get one or two, what you probably want is prize figures. Now, prize figures, like I say, are the cheap ones, but they also are called prize figures because in Japan they are won as prizes in, say, like claw machines and stuff like that. So typically they are smaller and lighter, they are simpler, but you can get them for much cheaper. So what we can do is we can go down to the run section of our MFC search here and select prize, and then search, and since we're still searching for REM, it's going to come up with all of these prize figures. You'll notice that it was about 400, it's now 250. Most of REM's figures are prize figures, understandable, and these are often going to be much cheaper. Prize figures still can vary in price a fair bit. If you buy like a second-hand prize figure, maybe without a box, you could quite easily get one for like $5, something like that. But at the top end of prize figures, you can probably get them for like 70 or 80 quid if they're kind of expensive. One example of a more expensive prize figure type is going to be Pop-Up Parade, which is a series of prize figures. Pop-Up Parade often sells for around $50-$40, something like that, and there's a whole variety of Pop-Up Parade figures. They're really good. I would highly recommend checking them out, actually, because they're just high quality for the price that they're at. But anyway, we also have other types of figures. So for example, scale figures are normally the next tier up. Scale figures are, as you could imagine, to scale the actual character. Now, to be fair, a lot of prize figures are anyway. Oh, well, roughly. They're not measured, but it's like they look fine. But the scale figures are specifically to scale and to a certain scale. So the most common of these would be 7th scale, and that means it is a 7th of the size of the actual character. You can also get all manner of scales. The common ones are 7th, 8th, and quarter, but you can get other scales. I have a 12th scale, and you can also get half scales or even 1-to-1 life size if you want to throw a lot of money at it. You could also probably get 5th and 6th scales, although they're a bit less common. And I've never seen a 3rd scale, but maybe they exist, who knows. But yeah, so you can get all types of scales, and the cost of these obviously is going to go up the larger they are. So the 7th scales, being the most common, are normally around $150, maybe $200. Of course, it depends on the details of them. So if you look at something like a Shibuya Scramble one, I'm not going to explain that. It's a series of scale figures. They're all 7th scale, however, but because they're so detailed, they end up being more like $300. I've just searched for some Shibuya Scramble ones to give you a quick show of them. Since I use them as an example, you have here a little Rimuru, and then we've got like an Alice there, and as you can see, there's quite a lot of detail that go into these ones, and this is why, as you can see on the price there, it's a lot higher. It's more like $300, despite the fact that they are only 7th scale. But we also get Shibuya Scramble at 4th scales, like this one, which is a 4th scale, but because it's got much less detail to it, it's just the character by themselves, no fancy base or anything, it ends up being around the same price anyway. So there you go. There's kind of the balance between scale and detailedness. The step up from scale figures is resin figures. So getting this example here, just because it's a good example, I love this figure. this is a resin figure, and despite the fact that it's 6th scale, it is way more expensive than the other figures that we've talked about. I think this one goes for around $600-700, something like that. But you can tell just by looking at it that it has a lot of detail if you look at like the weathering on the coat and stuff like that. And this is the advantage of resin figures. You can put a lot more detail into resin figures, which is really cool, but it makes them way more expensive. They're also a bit more fragile, but that's another matter. So yeah, resin figures, this is the next step up. And that's mostly, I would say, the 3 types of figures. You start off with prizes, then you get scales, and then you get resin. Resin figures will also be to scale, so like that's a thing to take note of. But the point is that they're made of resin, so yeah, there you go, they're more expensive. If you are just starting out, I would highly recommend not buying a resin figure. You maybe want to get a scale if it's like a small scale, or something like that. But I would mostly say start out on prize figures. I know I started out on prize figures and then worked my way up from there. I don't own any resin figures, and I don't know if I'm going to anytime soon, at least. But yeah, you probably want to start out with prizes. Now, next I'm going to talk about second-hand figures, because I would very much recommend getting second-hand figures. It's very good. It's not just for the sake of them being cheaper, although of course second-hand figures are cheaper, but the availability actually is very important, because figures only release for a certain time. Once they've sold out in shops like these, some of them will have second-hand figures, especially Mandarake, but once they've sold out of shops like that, you will have to look for them for second-hand, because they just don't make them anymore, right? And there's a couple of places that you can do this. The first one that I'm going to mention is actually on MFC. If we go to community, we go to ads, we see ads for figures. And there's loads of figures here. This is people selling figures. Now, this is not specifically done within the site. This is just ads for figures. So if we click on one of them, for example, might not be a good example. Why YouTube gonna demonetize me? Let's just look at this Spider-Man. Yes. So here we go. We've got this person here selling their Spider-Man. They've uploaded some pictures of the Spider-Man to prove that they've got it or something. They've put a bit of a description here. It's been put in display, but it's in perfect communication. Will ship anywhere. Shipping and import costs are for the seller. They have put the price at 110 euros, and they are saying that their location is in the Netherlands. So MFC does not manage the sale and the buying of these figures. This is just an ad space. What this means is that you have to negotiate completely with the seller. So if I did want to buy this, I would have to message him on the site, Gojo here, and I would have to ask to buy it. He will tell me what the shipping cost is once I've given him my address. He's probably going to look it up somewhere. Import costs as well, also, as he mentioned here, although that's not managed by him at all. And then I will probably have to PayPal this guy or something like that, and then he will send the figure. What this means, though, is you have to be kind of careful, because it's totally possible for someone to quote-unquote sell you a figure and then to just run. And this is because it's just an ad space. MFC is not liable for any of this kind of thing. They will normally ban users that do things like that, but like at the end of the day, that's not really anything. So you do have to be careful when buying from people like this. Check that they've got some reviews on their profile and stuff like that. So if we go on here, we can see this guy's got 5,000 hits on his profile. He does not have any comments, so I might not buy from this guy. He has been around for 7 years though, so he hasn't been banned anytime recently, so that's a good sign. Then if we look at his ads, we see this is the only thing that he's selling, so he might not be known for selling stuff at all. Maybe you don't buy from this guy. But if you do find someone that has reviews on their profile of other people that have bought from them, they've got a really old account with a lot of hits on it, maybe they're selling a lot of figures, they're clearly used to doing it, then yeah, it's pretty reasonable to buy from them. I buy from people on MFC quite often, and what's quite nice is if you go on the figure, you can add to your collection. Like I said at the start, this is kind of like my anime list. You can say whether you wish it, order it, or own it. I'm not doing any of this. Okay, well, I guess it's just on there now. Wonderful. Anyway, yeah, if I add this to my wish list, it will send me notifications when the figure is being sold, and I can then check those notifications. Should we click on mine? Let's just click on mine. We go others, and then we can see all the figures that are being sold recently. I can go, oh, do I want to buy this? No, $300 is expensive. I'll get rid of that one. Do I want to buy this? $420 is also expensive. Oh, 130 euros for that one. Oh, that's a pretty good price. I'm not going to get rid of that one, which is why it's been there for 7 days. So you get the point, and it will update me on the figures that I've wished every time someone is selling them on the site, and then I can click on one of these and I can message the guy if I want to buy it. But yes, normally you just pay them with PayPal, and you have to be careful when buying from people like this, but it's pretty safe. Most of these people are pretty good. There are also other places that you can buy secondhand figures like this. For example, Discord servers. Again, this is kind of sketchy. You have to make sure you know who you're buying from. And while MFC is not officially a site for buying and selling figures, it does at least have the ability to leave reviews and stuff on people, whereas Discord obviously does not. So you have to be even more careful. But the same rules apply. If you find someone who is clearly known for selling figures and has positive reviews from it, maybe you join a server that's based around selling figures, there are some out there, then maybe they do have reviews and they do have people that have said they've bought figures from. Then it's pretty safe. And again, you'll find yourself PayPaling them or something like that, and then they'll send you the figure. I have bought figures from people on Discord before, and I'm pretty happy with them. So yeah, that is also another option. And buying things secondhand is cheaper. The other advantage of buying things on Discord servers or MFC or somewhere like that is that you can haggle with people, which is kind of nice. There's no haggling on Ami. But yes, if you want a bit of a cheaper price, maybe if you're buying more than one figures from the same person, you could say, hey, can you give me a discount because I'm buying more than one figure from you? Often the answer will be yes, because these people want to sell their figures. So that's kind of interesting as well. Would highly recommend being a little ballsy when doing things like that and try and get a cheaper price on stuff. Of course, it depends on the current offer, and if the current offer that you see them price the figure at is already really good, you're probably not going to beat it. But at any rate, worth having a look. Worth asking. You don't lose anything by asking, do you? So that's another advantage of buying them on sites like this. So that's pretty nice. Anyway, I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to say this video. I've said a lot of random stuff, and it was probably not super coherent because I didn't really plan what I was going to say. Let's go! But anyway, hope you enjoyed. Hopefully I gave some info that was worth having there. You can go and start all of your figure collections now. If you do want any links to other sites or Discord servers or anything like that, or just generally advice on figure stuff, I'm open to questions, because when starting out on something like this, it's always important, I think, to get some opinions of someone that knows what they're doing. I know that when I first started out figure collecting, I was very much trying to ask people that were collecting figures already what they thought of particular deals or particular sites, particular users, if they were trustworthy, if they were a good deal, if it was a good figure, stuff like that. And if you do have any questions like that, I'm pretty open to have a discussion on those kind of things as well. But anyway, yeah, I think I'll leave this video here. Bye.